Welcome back, friends. Today, I wanted to bring you an update on Vindictus Defying Fate, along with a lot of the features and content that will be available during the global alpha test. Alright, so first and foremost, I know the most important thing a lot of you are looking for is the date for the global alpha test. Now, that date is scheduled for June 8th through June 17th. So you will have quite a few days to play and test out a lot of the features and mechanics that are available during this test. Now, we do have a lot of ground to cover here because they did put out a FAQ for a lot of questions regarding the global alpha test, and I did want to run through a lot of that with you. But before that, I did want to show you that they did release a full trailer for Karok. So the Karok character trailer is available, and in that trailer we do see Karok using a lot of his skills and abilities from the original Vindictus game, including the Clash feature. And now the Clash ability is very important because it speaks towards the much larger picture going into the future of the game, which is multiplayer. Since that ability seems to function more or less the same, it means that he will be a very important supportive character during the multiplayer experience. Alright, so let's get into the FAQ here. For starters, once again, we do have the schedule for the global alpha test, which again is June 8th, 2025 to June 17, 2025. Currently, the only available platform for the global alpha test is going to be Steam. However, that doesn't mean that the final product will only be on Steam. They do mention a little bit later on that they do have plans to finalize the product and be able to release it onto consoles at the time of the official launch. Now, since this will be a global alpha test, the game will be released with multiple languages supported. These languages will be Korean, English, traditional Chinese, and simplified Chinese. Now, it's very likely that these won't be the only languages available in the future once the full game releases, but at least for the global alpha test, these will be the languages available. Regarding region locks for the global alpha test, it looks like the alpha test will be available worldwide without any regional restrictions, although availability in certain regions may be limited. Now we get to sharing content for the actual global alpha test, and there are a couple of questions here. The primary question being, can we stream the alpha test gameplay? And just like with the previous alpha test, they seem to be all good with us streaming this. In fact, they say they encourage it and they hope that we can spread the word about the game and share any type of feedback that we may have about it. Now, if you're interested in keeping up to date on the alpha test and any future progress about the game, they are available on YouTube, on Twitter/X, TikTok, and they also have a Discord server where they post the most up-to-date information on there. Now, there's a question here, is there any benefit to adding the game to your Steam wishlist? Now, adding the game to your wishlist ensures that you'll be among the first to receive updates on future tests and official launch. And it also supports the dev team and helps them deliver a more refined and high-quality experience. Essentially, the more people add this to their wishlist, the more attention it draws and the more support they receive from us. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and go onto Steam and wishlist this game. Now on to some gameplay and features. Can I customize the appearance of my equipment or weapons? And the answer to that is yes. You can change or dye your equipment and outfits. And you can even customize individual outfit pieces so that you can create your own unique style. Regarding how many playable characters will be available during the global alpha test, currently there are 4. We have Lan, Fiona, Delia, and now we have Karok as well. However, this doesn't mean that this is the final roster of characters that will be available on the final launch, but at least for this global alpha test, we will be able to play with at least 4 characters. Now, I do have my own ideas on who might be the next couple of playable characters, but I'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, here's one of the more important questions that I think a lot of us were asking about and trying to figure out what was the scenario here. And that is, can I play with other players during the alpha test? And the answer here is yes, which means multiplayer will be available during the global alpha test. However, this will be specific to certain content within the alpha test, maybe not with every content that will be available. But again, this is huge because that means that multiplayer is already in the works and we'll be testing that out during this global alpha test as well. Not only that, but we will be able to walk around a village area and interact with other players. Another question is, can I play on console? Well, as I mentioned before, currently the only platform available to play this game is Steam. But again, that doesn't mean that they do not have consoles in mind for the final product. They do hopefully plan to have it available on consoles as well at the time of the final and official launch. Now, regarding playing with a controller, so currently the only available and tested controller that can be used for the global alpha test is the Xbox controller. So if you don't have one, go ahead and pick it up. It will probably have a lot easier time playing the game with that one. However, they do state that they do plan to add a wide range of controllers in the future to be able to be used. Another question that they have is, will there be more additional tests planned for the future? And while there aren't any currently planned or at least stated, typically the way these development cycles work is they'll release the alpha tests and then they'll jump into a beta test, whether that's a closed beta, beta 1, beta 2, or an open beta test. They'll likely have one of those as well in the future. So if any of you miss this global alpha test, don't worry, they likely will have another test, beta test probably in the future. So is Vindictus Defying Fate an open world game? And the answer to that is no, which I had already assumed previously. It doesn't seem like this will be that type of open world game, considering the old Vindictus also wasn't that. However, considering that this is a newer version, a new rendition of the Vindictus world, it will likely be a lot more immersive and you will be able to have a more wide range and diverse options to explore the areas that you are in. Another question that seems to pop up a lot is Vindictus Defying Fate a Souls-like game? And as I mentioned in some of my previous videos, Vindictus is not really a specifically Souls-like type game, although there is some inspiration from it. Now, Vindictus itself is somewhat original in the fact that it takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of different type of games. Souls-like game, DMC style games, action, adventure. A lot of these things are part of the Vindictus bloodline, and so you likely will recognize a lot of that within the game. But specifically, it is not a Souls-like game. However, I'm sure you can make it something similar depending on the difficulty and handicap that you put yourself in while playing. Is the game free to play? Will there be microtransactions? I'm sure a lot of people are questioning this right now. However, the business model is not currently finalized, so we don't have a final response on that. However, if this is going to be anything like the original Vindictus, then likely it will be free to play with many microtransactions available, including but not limited to things like attire and unique avatars, maybe unique weapon skins. But that remains to be seen. I don't want to put words in their mouth. So for now, the business model is not finalized. Is PvP planned for the game? In the original Vindictus, I believe there is PvP. I did try that out a couple of times in the past. Don't know that I was a fan of it. But then again, I'm not a PvP hype type of person. So I guess I didn't really care if there was or not. However, for Vindictus Defying Fate, currently, there is no PvP planned just yet. However, they are reviewing this and there may be potential for this in the future depending on the community feedback. Will there be options to customize body, shape, face, and hair? The answer is yes. You will have quite a few customization options, including eye color, makeup, hairstyles, and dye options. There's also physique customization available during the character creation. And this is something you can adjust later on in the game as well. Will the number of active skills increase? And essentially, these active skills are just the type of skills you can use during battle. And in the original alpha test, there weren't really that many. It was very bare bones. But in this case, you will have up to 4 active skills. One of them you get early on in the game, which is unlocked at the beginning. And then the rest you can acquire using the ability system. Here is a constantly asked question, which is, when will Vindictus Defying Fate be officially released? Now, I think we have to have a little bit of patience here because we need to understand that these are alpha tests. These are not even beta tests. Alpha tests are the very primary set of tests used to change and fix a lot of the things within the game that the devs may see problems with or that the player base may not enjoy. And so, of course, I'm sure we're all interested in an official release date, but that probably won't be around for a long time. And so the official release date has not yet been determined. So let's just give it some time. Let's enjoy this global alpha test and maybe a beta test, and then see what the future holds. Now, on to what type of content is going to be available in the alpha test. So here are a couple of things that will be available. For starters, of course, we mentioned before, you will have the choice of 4 playable characters, and you will have a follower system, which is essentially NPC companions that will assist you in combat. And I know this is also available in the original Vindictus game. However, I don't know that I was around long enough to be able to actually use or interact with that system, but replaying it just a couple of weeks ago, I do see there are certain companions that follow characters around in the game. You do have the options of pets in the original Vindictus, but I think this companion system is slightly different, and so I do want to get into that a little bit later on. There are a lot of details regarding the companion system, but let's put that off for now. Combat. You will be able to play single player or multiplayer depending on the type of content that you're playing. However, it's just good to know that multiplayer will be something we'll be able to be a part of during this alpha test. So we will be able to interact with NPCs and follow through some of the story related cutscenes. Growth system. So in the previous alpha tests, there was no leveling up, there was no weapon crafting, no ability systems. It was once again very bare bones. However, in this global alpha test, we will be able to encounter all of those systems and more. Village and inventory system. So in this test, we will be able to run around a village, meet other player characters as well, and we will also finally have an inventory system where we'll likely be able to see and equip items and gear and other items that we can come across in the game. Various cosmetic items, which I assume will be a lot of different types of outfits or accessories that we could probably use during the gameplay. And finally, more diverse content, which could be pretty much anything. So that leaves it up to your imagination. Now, here we have some system requirements for the game, the type of specs you'll need in order to be able to run and play the game. Hopefully I will be able to meet all these requirements, unlike last time where I was unable to even get into the game and my computer died soon after. So hopefully that won't happen this time around, so I can bring you all some of the actual gameplay content of the global alpha test. And finally, on the FAQ list is just some common issues you may encounter while playing the game and a couple of hopefully fixes that you can use in order to be able to get those resolved and jump back into the game and enjoy. Now, I did want to go back to the follower system because they did share a guide and a lot more intricate details in the Discord, and I did just want to share some of that with you here. So what is the follower system? The follower system essentially lets you assign one of the 4 characters to be your companion or follower, and that will essentially be an AI controlled ally that will help you in battle. Now, some of the features of your follower, they will be your combat support, and essentially they can help you attack enemies or guard against enemies based on their AI behavior. And I assume that's going to be distinct to each individual character based on the character that you choose to be your ally. Now, what are the behaviors of the companion during combat? Well, they do have the default positioning, which is essentially they'll follow the player around and engage enemies when you get close to them in combat. They do have their attack patterns, which essentially will allow them to perform combos and dodge or guard depending on the situation. And likewise, if they take damage, they will react to that and they will show the appropriate animations as well. And they also have the ability to be revived by you, the player. So if your ally companion is KO'd during the battle, you do have the ability to go up to them and interact with them to revive them faster. However, if you don't do that, they will still revive after a certain standby period. As for the followers' growth, they do level up similarly to you. So I guess based on how you use them, they will level up and gain their stats. And then you can also craft and enhance their weapons. And you do have a sort of shared set of abilities that you can use with them. Finally, regarding the appearance and customization of your companion, your followers share the same type of items and appearance as the player. Their unified appearance inventory and a customized look will remain intact when the character is assigned as a follower. The followers can also interact with certain environmental elements. They can climb ladders, they can use zip lines, and more. However, they cannot interact with doors, movable objects, or falling traps. So yeah, those are a lot of details to get into for this global alpha test, and the test is right around the corner, once again, June 8th. So be prepared for that. Get your computers ready and get some time off from work to hopefully have some fun playing this game. Now, regarding my predictions for the next couple of upcoming characters, so the pattern looks to be 2 characters at a time, and looks to be 1 female character and 1 male character. And if I had to take a guess, since the current roster of characters are more melee and close range style characters, I think it's very likely that we'll be introduced to some long range style characters. The characters in specific that I'd think would be next would be the magic user Evie, who is well known from the very beginning of the original Vindictus game for her magic attacks and her unique style of fighting. And she was a somewhat useful support character in that she had a couple of spells that could incapacitate enemies and hold them in place and things of that nature. And so since we're getting into multiplayer at this point, I think she would be a good addition to that. And the second character would likely be Kai, who is an archer class. And Kai is somewhat of a mix of a style of character. So essentially he is of course long range since he is an archer, but he also uses traps to attack enemies in wide range area, and he does have a somewhat of a melee aspect to him, so he is somewhat of a all-rounder, but he is a good character to play nonetheless. So I think this would help even out the character roster here, once again considering that most of the characters we have now are melee class close combat style characters, with the somewhat exception of Karok, who can also take the place of a tank. But please let me know your thoughts on this and let me know who you think might be added next to the character roster. And so I think that just about covers all of the most important aspects of the global alpha test coming up. But if anything else pops up in between then and now, I'll do my very best to bring you all the updated news that I can for Vindictus Defying Fate. And hopefully I'll see some of you in game as well. If you enjoy gaming content like gameplay, narratives, game reviews, gaming news, and commentary, consider liking this video and subscribe to The Hero's Blade. Until next time, wish you all the best and God bless.